coming to the park keepers meeting. We're really happy that you're here. We realize that everyone has busy schedules, and we're just very thankful that you can be here this evening. We have a great lineup of speakers and things to cover. So my name is Fiona. I live in the Lawncrest section of Philadelphia. I kind of back up to the Tacony Creek area where I live. So we'll just go around the room and introduce different people. So I'll start off with Malcolm.
Thank you. So yeah, my name is Malcolm. I'm the one who's been emailing and calling you guys nonstop about this meeting. I am the community organizer with TTF. I'm very excited to be here tonight. I'm really excited to kind of see what we can talk about, what we can discuss, and what comes out of the meeting tonight. Dorian, would you like to go next?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Dorian de Angel, and I'm the community watershed leader for TTF. I live in the Cheltenham area near Cheltenham Crescentville Gateway, and I will pass it on to JJ.
Hi friends, my name is JJ. I'm coming at you from West Philly, all the way over this way. But for the last couple of years, I've been working on this project that involves walking the perimeter of Philadelphia and inviting others into that exploration. So it brings us across the TTF watershed, both right by where Dorian lives, and also at the bottom end on the Delaware border. Maybe I will pass it on to, are we passing it to everyone? Yeah, Eric, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Eric Blackston. I live in Feltonville, and I'm been a keeper for a while. I bike through the park every day on my way to work. Yeah, so really appreciate that it's part of my commute. I'll pass it on to Dallas.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Dallas Herbert. I belong to 215 People's Alliance, and I live right behind Tacony Creek Park down the street from Frayona. And I'll pass it to Makia.
Hello, my name is Nikaya. I live in the Watershed area. What else? I live about maybe like a couple blocks away from the park, and I do some community work there with TTF. I'll pass it over to TJ.
Hey everyone, thanks for letting me be here. My name's TJ. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the new coalition and convening manager for the Fairmont Park Conservancy. So yeah, it's nice to meet you all and hope to be able to support in whatever ways I can. And yeah, I'll turn it over to my more important colleague, Marianne.
Yeah, not more important. We work hand in hand. My name's Marianne Dock. I use she, hers. I work with Philadelphia Parks and Recreation as a community initiative specialist. So I support several of the Park Friends groups across the city, including Tacony Creek as a stewardship coordinator. And I'll pass it to Pete.
Yeah, Pete Carter. I live in the Northwood section. I like to walk around and take pictures of birds and things and enjoy the park and, you know, relax, try to get away from the noisy machines that are out there, and try to help advocate for, you know, some better security to try to keep them from tearing up the park and scaring away the animals. And I will pass it on to, is there anybody left to pass it on to? It might be me. I guess back to Fiona then, right?
So I can hop in. If that's everybody, I want to make sure that we got everyone. If so, I will pass it on to our guest speaker for the evening, JJ. Yeah, as he talks about a couple of his programs that are. Oh, sure. Just real quick, this is the official welcoming screen, so thank you.
There it is.
There you go.
Hi, friends. I'd love to talk to you about this walk around the city that I've been doing for a while. And what's exciting is that a lot of other people have been setting out on this exploration. A few of us did it in 2016 through a little artist residency, but on the left there in that photo, you'll see a group of high school students who've done about 100 miles around the whole city, some of whom have done it twice this last year. So it's been exciting to facilitate this experience, invite people into this exploration. I thought I knew Philly pretty well before 2016. I'd been here since 1997, and the city felt like home to me since I got here. You know, and a lot of y'all are up here near the park. The skyline's down here, the historic old city district's here. I'm over in West Philly here. And Philly is really big. Philly is wildly big and has amazing things on its borders. Yeah, I thought I knew the city pretty well. It turns out I sort of knew this chunk from like South Philly, where I worked at a brunch restaurant, to Fishtown, where I lived for a year way back in the day. Maybe I'd been up in the Wissahickon once, but I'd never been to Longcrest. And I love it. And I'd never been in the park before 2016. And it's such a gem. And it's such a gift of when we're walking down Cheltenham Avenue for a long bit of pavement to all of a sudden duck into the park is an amazing transition. And Walk Around Philadelphia has grown into, it's sort of been a public program for since the pandemic or so. I sort of started opening it up to more people in February of 2020, and then the pandemic hit, and the Fringe Festival wanted to do a safe outdoor distanced offering alongside their mostly virtual programming that September, and I organized and facilitated for folks to organize their own pod and set out on their exploration. And it's a relatively simple concept. We follow the border of the city as best we can. The whole thing takes about 100 to 120 miles, depending on which adventure detours you do, but people don't do it all at once. A lot of people will, like a few people completed their first full loop around the city this September or last February, but they started 3 years ago. So there's options to do a single segment, a partial segment. We break it into different chunks, but each chunk has some interesting contrasts and some interesting discoveries. And it's a really interesting way to think about borders, what borders and boundaries mean, who drew these lines, why and how, to think about where we can walk as pedestrians safely and how, and who can walk where. There's a lot of questions of privilege and accessibility there. To look at this line that sometimes feels pretty arbitrary. Sometimes it's natural border, it's the creek, it's the rail line, and sometimes it just cuts through the middle of someone's house, literally. Further up in the Northeast, there's just places where the borderline cuts right through people's yards and houses, which is fascinating. How it affects land use, how it affects school districts. And the interesting thing is we have this, as we do the walk, we look at Philadelphia and not Philadelphia and look at the border that way. But we also have these transitions, like when you're walking through Cobb's Creek and then you come to some abandoned golf courses and then all of a sudden you're on City Avenue. You know, or Cheltenham Avenue into the park, into Fiona's backyard alleyway where there are those magic long, like size of a whole extra row house plot gardens that are so lovely. And following through the neighborhood there, and then all of a sudden, you know, by the Burholm Family Fun Center, you have a park, and then you have a wooded area, and then, you know, then you're back in some neighborhoods. Along the Delaware, you've got Glen Ford as sort of historic site, followed by yacht club, followed by big houses, followed by scrapyards, followed by prisons, followed by industrial sites. There's this contrast along the way. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and this project wouldn't be that interesting to follow the border in D.C., but in Philly, it's fascinating. So the walk's been happening twice a year, sort of growing organically, inviting people in. There's also people who are setting out to do it on their own. There's also a couple sort of retreat things that I've facilitated for groups. It's a growing program, trying to, you know, figure out how to facilitate this exploration of the city, which is certainly humbling and really delightful. I've done it 12 times now. I just finished my 12th loop all the way around the whole city, and it keeps on surprising me. I keep on thinking there's places that I know it by now, but no, there's a new surprise every time. And I'm not a tour guide. I'm sort of an organizer, facilitator, instigator. But what happens is when we bring our groups together, they all bring their knowledge, they co-create their route, they do collaborative wayfinding. We don't give turn-by-turn directions and say you have to go this way or you have to go that way. The group looks at the map, looks at the border, finds their way. If there's an obstacle someone doesn't feel comfortable with, we go around. Adventures unfold no matter what. It's a pretty amazing social space what happens is you have people who've never met before from all over the city in different walks of life, all of a sudden set out side by side on this adventure, and all of a sudden they're on the same team. And like instantly they're having richer, deeper conversations than you would at sort of a networking event or something like that. Something about walking side by side, the open space of conversation, being in nature, being on strip malls, being in these like different encounters of the city, walking slowly through a place you wouldn't normally stop and explore, or a place that you might want to come back to and explore, because we're only in a little part of the park when we sort of are in that upper corner near Doyen. But then, we're like, oh, this place is gorgeous. I want to come back and discover the whole rest of the park. A lot of discoveries along the way. And so for me, part of it is this deepening relationship to the city and sort of thinking of it not from this center-centric skyline center area, but more from the borders and everything that they hold. What does that mean? And then, there's a connection to your own body. Just being out walking all day is a thing that we don't always have the opportunity to do. So doing it for a longer period of time really is just magical and joyous. And then the connection to neighbors, to see things through other people's eyes, to each bring our own expertise. People bring different stories and perspectives or notice different things that I've never noticed before. Every time I do it, I learn from the people I walk with. And so that's really kind of the joy of it. And so along the way, there's sort of a trail being blazed. Some of our walkers go out there with these little stickers. You might catch a glimpse of them around their sort of invitations into the project. And the high school students who did the walk really loved spotting them and like slapping them for good luck along the way. And we've started to put up a few trail signs that invite people into this larger exploration. We're also trying to cultivate a little bit of the kind of culture that the Appalachian Trail has and the Camino de Santiago, where people are supporting walkers. This picture on the left is actually from the park, where we had, both of these photos are from our parade days. Our groups are normally capped at like 12 to 15 for a little bit more intimacy, but we've had a few parades where we have more like 30 to 40 people, which is less of an intimate conversation group and more of a festive celebratory stroll. And as we were coming through the park, we ran into Jethro here on the left. He and his kiddo were gorilla planting. This is maybe not Parks and Rec sanctioned, but they were gorilla planting 50 pawpaw trees, which are native fruit trees, in the park. And he gave us sort of a impromptu nature talk about combined sewer overflows and water quality issues. And those are the things that happen that we couldn't plan, we couldn't script, but without fail, the city surprises us, the city teaches us the things that we run into when we're setting out without much of an agenda. But this project ends up being a space that opens up conversations about ecosystems and infrastructure and planning and development and decay, and all of the we walk by the shipyards, we can talk all day about supply chain disruptions, but then you actually see the cargo containers stacked up. Or we walk by the prisons where folks might not have the privilege to walk around them. A lot of folks who are going there because they are incarcerated, or are going there because they are visiting a loved one, or because they work there. But they're a thing that otherwise is at the margins of our society that many folks have the privilege to not encounter. So what's it like to go by there? The walk just kind of keeps on creating a space for these conversations about all of the many complicated and tangled systems of the city. Over on the right here, we're at the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education, all the way up at the top end of the northwestern corner of the city. There's a lot of parks and beautiful green spaces on the edge of the city. There's also a lot of industrial sites and toxic waste sites, Superfund sites, like the Clearview landfill down here in Eastwick. I thought there were 3 Superfund sites. That's like the super toxic waste sites, but there's at least 4. One more on my radar, the Metal Bank site up this way. So a lot of learning about the city, seeing watersheds, seeing the sewer overflows, seeing the trash in the creeks, and also seeing the beautiful spaces like the ones that y'all are creating in the park. And so I can ramble on about this project forever, but I'd honestly rather answer a question if there is one, or invite y'all to join us. We'll do it again in February. We'll have a little year-end gathering in West Philly in December. We just closed an exhibit at Cherry Street Pier that was up for a couple months, sort of facilitating some conversations and sharing some documentation around this project. But I'll pop a couple links in the chat also to share a little bit of what this thing looks like in ways that you can plug into it. But as I said, we crossed the creek twice on the walk. And it's definitely, I'm interested in inviting people who live or work on or near the perimeter of Philadelphia into this project. So I'm curious if your neighbors might be interested, if you know an adventurous person who's, I feel like anyone who's part of this group is already going to be interested in the city and its ecosystems. So I'd invite you to join us in coming and walking your neighborhood or walking a completely different neighborhood. It's always a wild experience. One thing worth noting, the walk if you're not doing it on your own, if you're joining one of our organized groups, there is a sliding scale registration fee, but we have free registrations for anyone who needs it. That's helping cover a little bit of the cost of organizing this thing, but we don't want price to ever be a barrier. So if someone says, that sounds cool, but I can't pay 15 bucks or whatnot, we'll just sign them up for free. Just drop us a line. Same thing if you know someone who says, that sounds really cool, but I can't take a day off work or cover childcare. I'm also raising a little bit of money to help provide stipends. So for instance, in this last walk, a bunch of people paid to do the walk, and one of my neighbors did it for free and got $400 in Visa gift cards to support his participation. So trying to make it a more equitable, accessible undertaking along the way, because the first year we did it, we were 4 white folks with a Knight Foundation grant. There's like a lot of privilege. You'd think that walking around the city you live in sounds like a pretty basic thing that anyone should be able to do, but it turns out that there are barriers to access, and we're working on figuring out how to reduce some of those. So, and then there's the sign. On the left, you'll see the first wayfinding installation we set up at Penn's Landing by Independent Seaport Museum. Did this last year with the Delaware River Waterfront Corporation and the Independent Seaport Museum and the Penn Program in Environmental Humanities. And yeah, we put up a little trail sign. It's sort of styled like a national parks style. It's a kind of rustic hand-painted sign. And what I love about it is it points people towards some things you might expect, although they're farther from Penn's Landing, right? People right here on Penn's Landing are walking the perimeter of Philadelphia, but they're not thinking about it that way. They don't know that they're walking it. It's just the place where a lot of folks walk. And this invites them to walk a little further. What if they set out 100 miles around the city's edge, just following in that same direction, upstream or downstream, following the border? And it points them to environmental centers, and then it points them to parks and green spaces. And it also points them to rivers and tributaries and creeks, and then also points them to water treatment plants. And no one had ever heard about the Baxter water treatment plant until our phones all started going off with alerts for that latex spillover a while back, right? But those are highlighted here, as well as some chemical sites and toxic waste sites and industrial sites that nobody normally highlights as a tourist destination, right? So I like this sign for inviting people to think a little bit more about what they might find around the city, which is part of our city. The second sign on the right was just recently installed at Lardner's Point Park. So we've got one here, and now we've got one up here. And it is very similar design. It adds an extra panel for some cultural sites. We've also got permission to install one over here at Glenford, over here at the Morris Arboretum, over here at the Schuylkill Center, and we are talking to you about installing one over right by where Dorian lives, where Cheltenham hits the park. And so that's where I know that this has already been sent out, but I wanted to re-invite your participation. I've got a little survey asking people to share locations that are on the perimeter of Philadelphia. So it could be in your neighborhood, or it could be in a totally different part of the city, as long as it's near the city border, the city's edge. Significant sites that might fit into these categories that you might want to see highlighted on this sign that we'll install by the park, or a sign elsewhere on the city. So the idea is the locations that are right on or near the park, we want to point to them from further afield. So maybe someone at the Schuylkill Center or Morris Arboretum might be invited to follow this border all the way and discover that thing in your neighborhood. And the folks walking by in your neighborhood might be invited to follow the border a little further afield and find their way out to Benjamin Rush State Park or something like that. So trying to weave together all these interesting different points around the city. So I'll share the link also for that survey. I'd welcome your input in it if you haven't yet. And I think that's enough rambling. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for joining us, JJ. If anybody has any questions, feel free to come off mute and ask, or if you want to think about it for a little bit and come back to it later, feel free to pop it in the chat. But like JJ said, he'll add those links into the chat. So just kind of keep us on schedule moving forward. I'd like to pass it off to Eric as he kind of gives a couple updates about the benches and his work with the little libraries.
Hello. A couple months ago, I had kind of had the idea to salvage a bunch of wood from my work and use it to repair all the benches in the park. And so finished that up probably about a month ago now, with the help of Tom McHale on one day and then Alex Rosario on another day, on 2 different Saturdays. So that was really cool. Yeah, so all the benches in the park that have full like metal brackets now are fully functioning. There's a few, there's 1, maybe 2 that like the metal part is completely broken and missing. So those ones we weren't able to repair. But yeah, that was a cool little thing to get to do. And then also I've been kind of taken on the responsibility of trying to like maintain the little libraries. So I'm still working on finishing the doors for the one at Tabor and Olney. And then unfortunately, was it this week or maybe at the end of last week, the one at Ramona got completely knocked off from the ground. Malcolm, do you know who has it?
We have it. So thankfully, Julie was in the park that morning and happened to find the library.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was more or less in one entire piece. The only issue was the door had come off and it was a little bit damaged to the plexiglass.
Yeah.
But the physical like structure of the main body of the library, the post that it was on, is still in one piece. So we have all that in the office right now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew that last time I put the last door on it and I reattached it to the post, that everything I strengthened, and then I was like, oh, the next time it comes off, the whole thing's coming off. So I kind of could see that was the new weakest link, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I want to see them maintained and still there because people love using them, and I don't know who all uses them, but they obviously get used really well, and that's really cool to me. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. So we're down 1 currently, kind of one of the main ones, and then the other one does not have any doors on it currently, unfortunately. But we're working on fixing that.
So I do want to, at least on a positive note, mention that the one at Tabor and Olney, while it doesn't have doors on it, we still have seen a lot of community use in that library. We have seen, I've been in the park several times, we've driven past it and seen that it has been filled with books. Normally I'll take them out because I don't want them to get damaged when it rains. So we put up signs like letting people know, like, hey, we appreciate you putting books in here, but just please hold off until we get a door on it. Otherwise, if it rains, like all the books are going to get destroyed. So like the fact that it doesn't have doors and we're still seeing a lot of community use in it is a really good sign.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's at least a positive note about that one.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we still have the one at Whitaker and Loudon that is in really good condition. And we have one at the Hammond and Nedrow Field. That one is supervised by the group that uses that baseball field called Phillies Philadelphia. So they've been taking really good care of that library. So thankfully, we still have a couple in the park for now, knock on wood. But yeah, there seems to be a lot of community investment in these libraries. And because of that, we are really engaging, involved, and committed to keeping them looking good for the community. So thank you, Ed, for your help with that.
Yeah, of course.
And then kind of speaking about things going on in the park, I'm going to pass it to Dorian as she kind of discusses some of the improvements that we've been working on in the park to kind of highlight those other positive aspects.
Yeah, so I just want to highlight some park improvements that have been happening if you haven't seen them. So here's a picture on the left of these no swimming signs that we have installed. And on the right, there's a map with the locations of where they are. So we placed these, they're both in English and Spanish, and they're placed near combined sewer outfalls. And so it really just highlights like warning, no swimming due to raw sewage going into the creek. So that's a good way to be able to share, like if anyone's swimming mainly in the summer, where there's a lot more people wanting to cool off in the heat. So we do have those up, and you can go to the next slide. Another exciting thing is that we recently put up 6 trash cans for the community. So if those of you that remember, we had a really nice project that these were all painted by Jay Coriano, the lids, about 2 to 3 years ago. And so we were able to revamp some of them, and they got repainted. And so we installed them along various locations along the trail. The map on the right also shows where those are. And it's a great way to be able to now have a place where as you're walking, you can throw away the trash. They're not at the top at the gateways. These are really just inside along the trail as you're walking. So these are going to be maintained by our Philadelphia Steward Coordinator and also our seasonal maintenance attendants. They go by and they empty out the trash cans and they place them at the top of the gateway, and Parks and Rec will then come and collect them. So it's a great way to be able to have this feature in the park, since I know many of us have been wanting to have trash cans along the trail. So we have, and there's a photo of Montez, the seasonal maintenance attendant, and Alex on the left, our stewardship coordinator. You can go to the next one.
Have you seen use of them? Like, have people, they've been needing to be emptied?
They've been actually been useful. As Zoe mentioned, we service the cans, and either Alex or our seasonal maintenance Montez will go out on Mondays to empty the cans. And we've been seeing a good amount of use in them. So that's really good that people are actually using them.
Yeah, I also know, like, if you're when you're out there on the trail and you see them, if there's any issue with them, like, take a photo, let us know. But it's great that those are out there. So we definitely want to make sure that they're well maintained. Another feature to highlight is, if you haven't passed by Adams Avenue Gateway yet, this is a photo. There's a nice brand new fence there that's just blocking that little perimeter to really help prevent access from vehicles into that section. And then if you see, there's like those yellow columns, those are the workings of a new gate that are going to be installed. And so we're really excited about that improvement that's going to be coming through. So thank you also Parks and Rec for all the work to get this going. So those are the improvements that we have so far. Any questions, you can feel free to ask in the chat, and we hope you get to visit this in person.
Pass along to Eric. If you want to kind of lead the next couple minutes discussing any park issues that you've noticed or things along those lines, I'll open it up to you.
Sure. So I bike through the park mostly just south of the boulevard from like Whitaker down to I and Ramona pretty much every single day, twice a day. But I do occasionally try to like do a little quick survey of like bike the full length of the park after work. I just kind of go for a 20-minute ride, and I'm able to get all the way to the top of Cheltenham and back in about 20 minutes. And so it's nice to be able to like have a quick little survey of it. Some things that I've been noticing recently, someone I assume through Parks and Rec did a lot of like bushwhacking along the edges of the park. Are you aware of that, either Malcolm or Dorian?
So we had requested that because basically the issue is Parks and Rec properties are cut every 2 weeks by contracted mowers, but a lot of the trail in Tacony Creek has knotweed on it, which grows faster than grass. And so basically once the knotweed grew tall enough, the mowers weren't able to maintain those sections of trail along the perimeter. And so it got really quickly overgrown. So my coworker, Jason, and I went out end of August and were able to survey the trail, and we're very grateful to our ops crew who was able to borrow a brush mower, and brush mow from Roosevelt Boulevard all the way down. So the trail is looking a lot cleaner and more open because of that. So we're really grateful to the team over at operations. And my hope is that we can request that early next season so that then the trail will kind of be open and it can be maintained by the mowers moving forward.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I really appreciated that happening. I had been like going through and like breaking down some of the knotweed at like places where it was really coming in. One spot that really could use it is right above the boulevard on like the concrete path. There's spots where the trail is kind of only wide enough for one person, right underneath the like the underpass there. But I have noticed like they just the contracted mowers were just there this week, and they did not continue into the places that have been bushwhacked to like keep it down again. So I don't know if that's something that can be addressed, that they could like, now that it's been bushwhacked, that they could mow the rest of the trail. Would be really great.
Yeah, I can bring that up with our the person who is in charge of the mowing contracts.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Also, someone before all this heavy rain we had, someone went in and had cleaned out a bunch of the places where there was huge amounts of erosion onto the trail. Do you guys know who did that?
So yes, but before I get into that, I do want to welcome Maria from Councilmember Cati-Lozada's office. I want to say thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you coming out to join us for this meeting tonight.
I thank you very much. And I want to apologize. I have been trying to get on since like 6:01, but I was originally working off of my cell phone and I could not connect to you. So I had to run and track down my iPad. So I apologize for being late. I feel so bad, but I am here. I have a pen. I will take all the notes and I will report back to Yanitza. And I apologize again.
Of course. Thank you so much for making it out. We really appreciate your diligence in joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
And then Eric, to your question, like that would be Alex and Montez. They were out a couple times over the last few weeks, breaking up a lot of the erosion on the trail, kind of widening it up, removing it, making it safer for people, biking on it, running on it, because we know it's gotten pretty bad over.
Yeah, it was really great. And then unfortunately, we've had tons of rain, back to the same of what it was, if not worse. Unfortunately, like the erosion's gotten really bad in places where ATVs and dirt bikes are riding above the trail and like down. And so, yeah, it's just as someone who bikes through it, and I bike kind of quickly, and I ride a road bike that has small tires, and so it's not the most fun. And then also like on days that it's raining and wet, then it just gets really muddy. And so yeah, it's not ideal. And yeah, I don't know how to resolve that issue. That's a much more complicated thing than just moving some dirt out of the way, because it's just going to keep running down as long as there's still a lot of ATV use and no like mitigation of all the like ruts coming down from the hills, the slopes along the trail.
I don't know if anybody else in the chat or call has any suggestions about that. Mary, I'd like to hear your thoughts if you have any. Just like anything you may have a top of your head, kind of what solutions that we may be able to work towards to kind of help mitigate those issues.
Yeah, I know something that I've seen in Pennypack is sometimes after it floods up onto the trail, it brings a lot of mud. And I've seen in Pennypack where Parks and Rec has come through with a pickup truck with a snowplow on the front and cleaned the trails. I don't know if that's something that we could also get into Tacony Creek from the operations crew.
I can look into that. I'm not sure, but I can ask for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Something else I've noticed, the crossing at Adams is atrocious in every way. One way that could be helped, if you could actually go back a couple slides to the safety improvement one that you did of the ones at Alex. Yeah, that one. So in the left picture, on the right side, right behind there's a bush right along the road, and that blocks the pedestrian crossing sign. And it's a kind of a blind corner now that as you're coming across there, people are driving very quickly through there, and it's already dangerous. And with this bush there, it makes it even more so. And the same is true on the other side. There's a tree that is slowly coming down over the sidewalk that also blocks the pedestrian sign, and also blocks the sidewalk as well. I don't know if that falls under PPR jurisdiction or streets or some other Philadelphia organization, but it'd be nice to at least get rid of those obstacles. I mean, the intersection.
Yeah, so I was in the park on Tuesday. I rollerbladed the whole thing, so I was able to track what was going on. So I did put in the tree that's along Crescentville Ave to our arborist crew. They were out clearing fallen trees, I know, on Wednesday. I'm not sure if they got to that area or if they just cleared the trees. So it's something to keep an eye out for, but they do know about it, and I do know they worked in the park on Wednesday. I didn't think about the bush or notice that, but I can see what kind of bush it is, see if it, needs to stay or if it can get moved or removed.
It looks like a weed kind of tree that's growing up.
It might be a honeysuckle if I can but I'm not quite sure, a mulberry, but I'll try to scope it out and see, if I can just cut it back myself.
Okay. How often are you in the park?
I try to make monthly visits to all my park sites.
Okay, cool.
But if need be, I can, go sooner.
Cool. Does anyone else have anything that they've noticed, and or ideas or suggestions about some of these things?
And I know this is a lot to ask people to come up with like solutions right now. So if you want to kind of take some time after the meeting and think about stuff and then reach back out, you can either email myself or give me a call. I'd be more than happy to talk with you guys and kind of put you in contact with the proper people. If you have any suggestions, you just kind of want to take time to think about it. But if not, we can keep go ahead.
One thing, on the other side of this picture on the left in Adams, where there's 4 benches, I just noticed there's someone who puts like a plastic bag on the back of one of the benches to collect trash, and since it's a place where there are 4 benches, it'd be really cool to also get a trash can there. I know you might not have an extra one right away, but as a place where people are already very much encouraged to be sitting down and hanging out, it'd be cool to have a trash can there. I think that side is a bit more accessible than the side with the bridge, in terms of getting into the park.
I can make that request. A lot of times it depends on, what's available at the warehouse. So
yeah. And I don't know if it's worth moving one of the trash cans, or I don't know.
Actually, I was told that by the operations team about, before requesting new ones, is it possible to move any existing ones? I know a lot of times there's a concern that, more trash cans can actually lead to more dumping. So, and potentially also more work for the ops crews to clean more cans. So, I don't know. Yeah. If you can think of any that need to be moved. I guess I'm just wondering, because there aren't really cans down along the trail except for now the community cans. So,
So I'll
I'll
make
have
a
to look
note of
into that.
that. I can talk to Julie
Yeah.
to see if we could potentially move one. I know all the cans were strategically placed to kind of help mitigate a lot of the dumpings that we saw, like over at Adams, we saw a lot of trash being littered, rising or over by Roar and the Boulevard, Fisher's Lane, were a lot of places we saw a lot of people just kind of dumping household trash. So that's why we had the cans to kind of help mitigate that. But I can make a note and see if we could potentially move one somewhere else and see what her thoughts are on that.
There is an old one in the area I'm talking about around all the benches where the old picnic tables are as well, but it's like way back in the bushes. I don't know, I've never been back to it. It might be concreted into the ground, um, along with like when those picnic benches were put in. But it's just sitting way back in the woods and there's no path to it or anything. I don't know if, yeah, maybe that one could be moved.
Yeah, like I said, I'll make a note of that and then talk to Julia, and then we'll follow up with you and see kind of where we can do with that. But I do want to keep us on schedule. So if nobody has any other stuff, I will pass it to Dallas to kind of speak about his experience recently.
Yes, well, I did take a walk with a group of us, and first I want to say about those trash cans. They're beautiful. I was really taken aback by how beautiful they are. I mean, they stand out. So people should be glad to even use something like that. But for talking about having a trash can at those two pictures you showed of the Adams Avenue safety upgrades, we didn't get a look, or you can't see the bridge that crosses the creek once you down in there. There's a trash can at the bridge. There's also a sign. How do I describe it? It's about 4 feet tall, and it's like the signs that are right there. You see, I'm standing next to them. Now, several of those signs around, and there was a trash can and a sign right by that bridge near Adams Avenue. But we walked through the park.
It'll be
there
that
were
photo on the
several.
top left.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So that's what I'm saying. That's there. It is one there, and it's right near the bridge. You just couldn't see it from the photos that you had up earlier. So there were several cans, and they were in great spots. I could say that. Now going through the path, from the outside, park looks like, I mean, you see nothing but trees. I mean, once in a while there's a patch where there's grass and you can go in and sit down and have a nice picnic, right off the street. But if you go and take the path, you'll see so much beauty down in there. You would want to take a picnic, take your family down in there and just enjoy the creek where it expands and looks like a pond. I saw a turtle about a foot brown sunning himself. See, this is things you don't see every day. And I enjoyed that walk. And I will be walking it more, you know. What else can I say about, oh yeah, I would assume that the state rep was there because trying to get some help doing upgrades and things to the park. And Helen pointed out a few things, like in some spots, it gets flooded on the path. And you can look at it and see that it sinks down. So it needs to be brought up, the grade on that path needs to be brought up in several places, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, but like you would need probably some help from the state to get the money to do that. And let's see, what else? The benches were great. They're lovely. They're fixed and they look lovely. And it was the one with the metal back that had slats on it at one time, and there's a plan to do it over again. These are they're eye-catching, and they make you smile. I whole trip. I couldn't do much or say much, but I just took it in. And oh yeah, another thing, might need some trees and limbs that were across the road, across the path in a couple places that needed some attention, and that might be what they was doing this week. Or someone said earlier that they saw them in there removing wood, the branches from the path. I really like the signs, like the one we're standing next to. I mean, other than having pictures of the park, it had pictures of people who visit the park, people who love the park. And as a matter of fact, the last picture we ran into was a picture of one of the women who was walking with us. And she lived across the street. Maria, I think that was her name. And that took me out, because here she is. She's a star as far as I'm concerned, with her picture there like that. It may be there for eons. I don't know. And the material is really great, because you could clean it off and it don't affect the picture. So, I was well satisfied, happy, and I'll do whatever I can to help you guys do whatever need to be done. I'm hoping that we could sneak the outside, that back Snake Road. I'm hoping we could sneak that in there, because that's just a stone's throw. You could throw a stone and hit Snake Road. So I'm hoping that we can get some Snake Road help too. But I had a very great experience going through that park, and I will be going more and more.
Thank you. And I know the state rep, Anthony Bellman, had a great time too. He shared in his newsletter that he had a fantastic time walking through the park. And he seems really excited to kind of help get us down there, like funding that we need to help make improvements for the park. As you can see, like Dallas said, he took a walk earlier. I believe was it this week or last week?
We took the walk?
Yeah, it wasn't this week, was it? It was last week, correct?
Yeah, the end of last week.
Yeah, so they took a walk in the middle of last week, and it seemed like it was a really productive and good walk. So I'm excited to see what kind of comes out of that. He seemed really invested in Tacony Creek Park and kind of protecting our environment, stuff like that. So we'll see what comes out of that. Moving forward, I do also want to put out a reminder that next Saturday, October 7th, will be our third annual Tacony Creek Park Music and Arts Festival. Fingers crossed that we'll be outside this year. Last year, we unfortunately got rained indoors. But if we do, unfortunately, we moved indoors. We do have a rain location. We'll be at Finletter School, which isn't too far from the park. But like I said, it'll be a really great event. It'll be from 1 to 5 on that Saturday. We'll be having live music. We'll be having people out tabling with their resources. Looks like our block parties. We'll be having games for kids. We'll have our cornhole set up. We have a couple other games that we're excited to kind of do for families, such as pumpkin painting, things along those lines. So that's a really nice activity to bring in the fall season. With that, however, if we do need help for volunteers to kind of help this event work as smoothly as we would like it to. So if anybody that is available to help out, we greatly appreciate it. We broke the volunteering into kind of chunks to kind of make it a little bit easier for people who wanted to volunteer. So they're in 2-hour increments, like windows. So we have it's from 11 to about, I think it's 11:30 to 1. We have set up from 1 to 3. We have staffing or like a main event, like staffing tables, like the kids section, the craft section, kind of helping out where needed. And again, from 3 to 5, we have a main event of being more hands on deck with crafts, helping at tables, signings, things along those lines. And then from 5 to 6:30, we have event breakdown. So a lot of the stuff like the live, for the live music, they have a stage. We don't have to worry about that. They'll take care of it. The event breakdown is more for helping us pack up things like our creek mobile and the tables and the supplies that we use for tabling and the craft stuff. So please, 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 if you guys know anybody who is looking for volunteer hours or just like to volunteer at a really great event, we'd love to have you guys come out and join us. I will follow up with an email after this meeting with the link to register, or if Dorian can put it in the chat, that'd be perfect. Yeah, we just love a little bit of help with this great event. So if you guys wouldn't mind sharing with people, we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I'd like to say, be sure to get me that information.
Absolutely, Dallas. I'll make a note to get to that.
One more thing. Send me that picture that I was in a minute ago.
Absolutely, I'll do that too.
All right.
I do want to put on people's calendars as well. Coming up on Wednesday, October 18th is our annual Milestones Award ceremony. We'll be celebrating 10 honorees who have made a large difference in our watershed. One of them is Eric, who will be honoring. So if you guys are interested, the link to get tickets is included in the slideshow. I believe I can drop it in the chat. But like I said, I'll be sending up a follow-up email with all this information. So we really encourage you guys to come out, join us for the award ceremony. We'll also be doing a silent auction in the week leading up to Milestones. We have a lot of fun stuff going up for auction this year. So it'll go live on Wednesday, October 11th at 7:30, and it'll end during the award ceremony on October 18th. So it's open for a week. So if you're at all interested, definitely recommend checking it out. I'll be sending that as well. And then one other kind of fun thing to kind of wrap up the year is last year we did our first TCP Keepers Friendsgiving. We held it at the Pan Asian Buffet right off of Adams Avenue. It's like a nice way of saying thank you for all of our volunteers, for all the hard work that you guys have been doing throughout the year. We also had a guest speaker at that event with the water department as they kind of shared some updates about GSI work that they were doing to kind of get public feedback as well. So we'll be doing it again this year. We'll be having it on Thursday, November 16th. We're still figuring out time and location, but it'll most likely be similar to last year. So I do recommend you guys putting that on your calendar. As we kind of move forward through the next couple months, we'll be sending out updates and invites for that meeting. Less of a meeting, more of like a Friendsgiving dinner type deal. But we do encourage you guys to join us for a lovely dinner as we kind of celebrate you guys and everything that you've done for TTF, all your hard work, all the hours you spent volunteering, lending a hand, as a way of saying thank you for the Thanksgiving holiday. So that'll be on Thursday, November 16th. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head moving forward, because we will be sending out more invites as we get more details about that. So I just want to say thank you guys for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know everybody has a lot of busy things to do. So we appreciate you coming out tonight. I don't know if anybody has any final thoughts or questions they want to share before we call it a night. Marian?
Hey,
Yes.
thanks. Sorry, I was having trouble with the muting. Yes, thank you all so much. It's great to be here with you all. I did just want to give an update about some dates in the Park Friends Network. So as a Friends group, you all are able to participate in the Park Friends Network, which is over 140 park groups across the city. So it's really exciting because this year we're celebrating 30 years of the Park Friends Network. Again, it started in 1993 with 4 parks, and now we're up to over 140. So we have some exciting events this year. This fall, we'll be doing a happy hour on October 17th. I know that's right before the milestone event the day before, but you could have a week of festivities. So we'll be sharing information about that shortly. We have our Fall Love Your Park, which is the weekend of Veterans Day, November 10th to 12th. And I believe TTF is hosting a cleanup that day, so stay tuned. And then we'll be closing out the year with a celebration for all our volunteers and celebrating the 30th anniversary on December 14th with an event at a banquet hall in South Philadelphia. So just want to make sure that all of you are invited and have those kind of dates on your radar, and we'll be sharing more information as we have it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Like Mary said, they have a lot of good stuff coming up. It is the 30th year anniversary. So as I get more details, I'll make sure to share them with everybody just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Also, I believe, Miriam, I think there was a survey about people if they want to share their positive experiences as being part of a friends group that they could submit to for that 30th year, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I don't know, TJ, if you have that handy and could drop the link, or otherwise we can get it out to you tomorrow. You can share
Yeah,
out.
if you want to send it to me tomorrow, I'll follow up to everybody with sending out all the links and everything. Cool.
Can do.
If you just want to drop it in the chat real quick, and I'll send it out in case anybody missed it today. I'll send it out again tomorrow. Yeah, if you guys have any positive experiences being part of the friends group, anything you want to highlight, really big accomplishments, recommend you submitting it to that survey so we can highlight, or the Park Friends Network can highlight that at their end of the year celebration in December. And if there's nothing else, I will release you all to go have dinner and enjoy the rest of your evenings. I want to thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Yeah, of course.
Have a nice
Thank
night.
you all. Good to be with you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Have a good night, everybody.